Hey guys, welcome to the channel. As you see in the thumbnail, what if Issei become a pure evil part 8. Before I start, please do support for more awesome content and subscribe my channel and like this video and also share this video with your friends. I have created my other videos playlist, there you can watch my all videos easily, check out as well. Let's start this video. The hole made its appearance at the center of the rather empty Kyoto train station. It was pitch black and held a violet light, however, the silhouette of a figure could be distinguished inside of it. A man appeared from the inside of the hole and started to look around. The man had deep brown hair that was closer to black and almost all bangs of his hair went to his right side, leaving his left one completely free. In his forehead, a mark could be seen. It was black in color with a tinge of red, shining in a purple light. It gave off a demonic vibe that could scare anyone. He wore an Oxford grey coat that held no eyelets nor a zipper, the only thing making it stay in place was a white string that came out of a pair of eyelets at the base of the neck. The string was tied up in a knot and rested on his chest. The rest of the eyelets, normally used for the buttons, were stitched up and colored in a rather opaque red. He also wore a form-fitting black t-shirt and pants of the same color. To top it off, brown, knee-length boots could be seen, they held no laces and only a pair of red designs could be seen etched on them. That man was Issei. He left his home as soon as he got his clothes, still being Friday in the morning, close to midday. Wow. Why is the station desolated? He asked no one in particular. Walking around he figured out the answer to his question. A big sign that read, "Under maintenance" could be seen near the wall which also held an old-fashioned clock. I see. Is it good luck that there is no one here? I don't know. After all, my Hellgate is capable of hiding my presence even from supernatural beings. Ignoring the thought, he looked around the place. A simple station with grey concrete floors and 2 rails for the trains. He could see some workers checking the rails and changing them for new ones. The Kyoto train station was one that had the main building on top of the actual stations, and that building was filled with stores, food, clothing among other things. While all stations and rail were down below, it gave the impression of a subway. Issei put his hands into his pockets and walked away. No one noticed him, and soon after walking around, he reached the staircase. What place should I check out first, he asked himself while going up the stairs. Since the maintenance was halfway done, the escalators were completely stopped just in case any of the people present upstairs thought the rail was open. He reached the top part of the stairs and crossed the yellow tape that kept people away from the location. After walking towards the right, he soon saw another pair of escalators, but this one fully functional. They were far away from his location, and not many people were walking in the hallway here. Well, the rail was closed, so they had nothing to do here. While looking around, Issei continued his journey. After a couple of minutes of walking, he reached the escalators he first saw and stepped on them. Reaching almost the entrance of the station, a sea of people appeared out of nowhere right in front of him. They quickly moved in different directions while pushing each other around. There were many people. Young, old, male or female, local or tourists, but as soon as he reached the end of the escalators some of them looked in his direction. After all, it was odd to find someone climbing up those stairs. The moment the normal humans laid their eyes on him they stopped moving. They froze. The males were kind of frightened of him, his appearance gave him a bad boy feeling, and the tattoo on his forehead suited him perfectly. The cold look on those really odd eyes gave them a bad feeling, they radiated a feeling that said don't mess with me, so like their instincts told them, they didn't mess with him. The female population was quite different, it all started from a couple of women that casually looked at him, but soon their friends accompanying them saw the looks on their faces and looked in the general direction they were staring at. After that, many, if not all the women, were staring at him. They all had 2 things in common, one was the blush on their cheeks whether large or small that depended on the female, and second was that they just stood still, not moving. The ones that were actually walking around the place noticed this and also curiously looked at the general direction, only for the same to happen, managing to create a perfect domino effect. After a few moments, the majority of the female population stood still and just looked at him. His bad boy look and presence attracted them, his clothing gave him a rather roguish vibe, making him quite the man in their eyes. His face, although it didn't look too handsome, had sharp features that showed experience in life. Issei was, of course, oblivious to all of this, he was just looking at the station. Wow. It looks rather good for a train station, those were his thoughts, he was interested in the looks of the station. The station was built to be open, so not much roof was seen. The light of the day peeked in between the steel girders and managed to fill the entire place with a brilliant glow. The lot of glass could also be seen, it was either completely clear or tinted with a blue color. The smooth floor gave the impression of a carpet and its grey color looked quite clear, ridden from any impurities. Some lamps could be seen at the extremes of the same station, but they were turned off. He could see, towards his right, another pathway leading inside with a couple of souvenir shops at both sides. He looked in front of him and saw a big staircase with a single escalator at its right-hand side. If he had to guess, he should be in the esplanade that connects the shopping square inside the station with the shopping district, and the big staircases in front should be one of the many entrances and exits. Now that I think about it, for a normal station this is quite aesthetically pleasing. While nodding his head, Issei walked upwards, ignoring the blushes from the ladies and the angry glares from the males. Reaching halfway up, he turned his head towards the left and saw a building whose entire facade was made out of glass. Those should be the offices of the workers here. Issei turned his head back and sped up. Finally, at the entrance of the station, he stared into the distance and inhaled a fresh breath of cold air. I'll let out a small smile. I'm free. I'm finally free from those people. He looked at the bright blue sky that had a small visible ray of light. He then closed his eyes and momentarily felt the wind hit his face. Thank you. He didn't even know who he thanked, but after that, he felt relieved. Where should I visit first? He looked around and started to walk in a random direction. Now that he was here, he didn't have to hurry. He crossed the road while still pondering to himself his next destination. Which place I visited last time, but didn't see it because of the attack on Kyoto. He walked around the place a bit more, seeing tall glass buildings and many people crossing the streets. A lot of things could be done here, but before he had any idea of what to do, a sound disturbed his thoughts. Grumbled. Star. Surprised by it, he blushed a little. Seems like I need to go eat something. He made his decision and turned towards the road. He now appeared to be quite a distance away from the station. It seems I got lost while I was walking. Surprised yet again by his luck, he looked at his surroundings. Not many things could be seen aside from a couple of buildings, houses and restaurants that were quite close to one another. Walking further inside the city without any fear, he strolled for a while. He sighed in defeat, not a single restaurant he liked. He was disappointed. It appears that I'll have to go to the market and buy food. Thera turned around, and when he was walking away he heard something that caught his attention. Come on. Come on. It just opened. You know how much that place is filled, even if it looks bad on the outside. The young man with normal Japanese hair said to his friend, both appear to be running, and just casually ran past to say. Yes, I know. Don't drag me. We're still on time. Today is a good day. Not many adults or office workers go at this time of the day. We have around an hour more. The one that was dragged was a similarly aged teen. He had long black hair and wore a school uniform that looked exactly the same as his friend. I wonder what the specialty of the day will be. While drooling, the first young man talked to himself. Looking closely, both had normal-looking faces. The long-haired one had brown eyes, while the other one black. Since they wore a normal-looking uniform, not much could be seen, but by Issei's guesses they shouldn't train anything in particular. So a specialty of the day restaurant that looks bad on the outside, but the food is delicious caught my interest. That place should have something appropriate for him to eat. Those two are normal humans, and no aura of a supernatural being is stuck on them. They should be your average humans going to an ordinary restaurant. Issei turned around and slowly followed those two young men without them noticing. A small smirk was on his face. Don't disappoint me. After all, my breakfast, and probably the meal of the day, depend on you. He appeared to be talking to the both of them, but they were too far ahead to listen to him. Crossing the corner, both men talked to themselves. Hey, did you see the guy back there? The long-haired one asked his friend. Yes, he looked dangerous, and although I hate to admit it, he's rather handsome. He should attract women by the dozens, the friend replied to his brown-eyed pal, a bit of envy in his voice. Yes, but something about him looks special. Although we ran past him, I could still tell he isn't normal. The brown-eyed young man talked to his friend. They soon disregarded the man they just saw and quickly kept running. Both of them didn't know that Issei heard everything. Look, dangerous. He didn't believe them. With a slow pace he followed the two humans. For him, tracking them was extremely easy. After crossing many streets, turning corners, and almost being hit by a truck, Issei reached the place in which he felt the presence of the two humans. Sumridrai Shopping District. He read the sign that was on top of him, held by two wooden pillars blue in color. It appeared the two humans brought him to a shopping district. Well, if worst comes to worst, I'll prepare my own food. I see the market over there and a convenience store on the other side, so sure, let's try. He shrugged his shoulders and walked in, following the aura of the two students. At the corner of the block he could see a normal and even below average restaurant. It had an awning red in color that appeared to be just cleaned off any grime and dust. He saw a sign up there and read out loud. Ssei Yukihira. A family business. Those are always the best restaurants. Deciding the place he was going to eat at, he hoped he wasn't wrong and walked towards it, soon reaching the sliding wooden door. Washakutakura Yukihira family restaurant inside. On the inside of the restaurant one could see a short red-haired boy sprinting in between wooden tables. He had a goofy look in his eyes which were golden in color and a smile on his face. A single scar was present on his left eyebrow, falling down until a little above his eyelid. Many different food plates were on his arms, too many in fact that there was the risk of dropping them. Then the man screamed, "A beef stew." The young red-haired turned his head and said, "Coming right up." Then he walked towards the location of the man. He left the stew in place and after a couple of moments all of his arms were empty. He just smiled and got back into the kitchen, which was literally on the opposite side of the main door. This place was small, a limited number of tables could be seen, maybe around 8 or 9, just enough for the young man to attend perfectly. The old man in the kitchen was cooking the food the newly arrived clients asked for, a pair of boys that got lucky and reached this place on time. He had long brown hair which is swept back save for a single group of bangs that hangs over his face down to his chin. His eyes were sharper and more serious than the boy which was standing in front of him and were also golden in color, meaning that they were both father and son. He had a slight beard on his chin and his body looked very well toned. "Ojiaji, everything has been delivered. Only those two you're cooking for are left. After this, we shall have our duel." The boy pointed at his father with a challenging smirk on his face. "Oh. You think you can win?" The father turned his head while still cooking, a fierce light could be seen in his eyes. But of course not feeling intimidated he replied back. "Fine, but who shall be the judge? Everyone here has already been won." The father agreed, but stated the problem they had. They wanted, if possible, someone new, but that person wouldn't open the door and just appear out of nowhere. Raidajiji while thinking he put his hand on his chin. If someone could appear now that would be a blessing. He was hoping for it. He even turned his head towards the door, his father did the same. A couple of seconds later the door was opened, it appeared someone heard their prayers. Yes, they both excitedly yelled, they even raised both hands. The boy soon started to think about what to cook. He didn't look at the man that just entered the restaurant, but his father certainly did, and what he saw scared him a bit. He knew the one at the entrance of the restaurant wasn't a normal human being. This guy. The man looked at the dark brown-haired boy standing at the entrance. Issei just closed the sliding door behind him and said, "Excuse me, I heard this place has some delicious food. I would want to order." His voice was sharp and warm, a really odd combination of tones that made everyone, except the red-haired boy, widen their eyes. He used this tone of voice on strangers so that he didn't scare them off, after all, they hadn't done anything to him. His normal sharp and cold tone was for those he thought of as a threat. Everyone inside was staring at the man standing at the door. However, the thing that made everyone inhale a cold breath of air was the tattoo on the left side of his forehead. Black with a tinge of red, and for them it looked like it shined with a violet light. That shining made everyone think that he just got it recently. His eyes were the exact same color as his tattoo, but, of course, without the violet light. Excuse me, Issei asked again, this time tilting his head. The young boy finally got back from his thoughts, and while looking at him with a smile he said, "Sure, please sit here." He pointed at a stool near the kitchen. The dragon nodded and approached the stool, all eyes still on him. What exactly is wrong with this guy? I feel he's different in a sense. The old man in the kitchen thought to himself. He has traveled all over the world and met many varieties of people, from extremely rich owners of companies to royalty and even normal office workers at the side of the road, but not once has he felt a presence such as the one the man approaching him had. It was difficult to explain, it appeared dangerous and mysterious, yet also like something was hidden. Issei looked at the young boy in front of him, who was still smiling at him. Quite the young fella. He doesn't appear to be older than 16, but capable of resisting my natural aura. Quite amazing. Issei was surprised by the young man, although a normal human, he seemed to have a pretty strong will and didn't judge a book by its cover. In the near future, he will be someone recognized by all. He made his guess which wasn't far off from the truth. "What do you want to order?" He heard the voice of the teen. Issei turned and looked directly at his eyes, maintaining eye contact for a couple of seconds, yet not a single bit of surprise could be seen in them. About that, what is the specialty of the day?" he asked back. The young boy smirked and answered, "Chicken egg, tempura don." Issei was convinced about the specialty and nodded his head, ordering that. "Please wait for a minute." The young man said to him, but then he turned around and asked, "Oh. May I ask you to be the judge of the duel between my father and I?" The question surprised Issei, but the boy looked straight at him with hope in his eyes, and that goofy smile made him nod. "On one condition." He lifted the index finger of his left hand up. "What is it?" The eyes of the boy turned serious, but seeing the mysterious man smile at the corner of his mouth, he relaxed. "Only if the food is delicious." That comment made the young boy turn around. While walking to the kitchen he said to him. But of course. It appeared to be that the restaurant and the owners of it were quite interesting. Issei sat there and closed his eyes, for everyone it appeared that he was taking a break. After a couple of moments, the rest of the people inside the restaurant started to talk again, this time about the mysterious man sitting on the stool. "Hey, what do you think about him?" unreservedly, they asked among themselves in a voice they thought was low. "I don't know. He looks odd and seems to be special in a sense, but I can't see how two older office workers who were on their lunch breaks talk to themselves." On the other side of the restaurant, two young women around their early 20s were also whispering among themselves. "Don't you think he looks hot?" A light brown-haired woman asked her friend, her eyes scanned the body from top to bottom of the one sitting at the stool. "If only he was more fit, he would be perfect," she said once again. The man didn't look muscular and looked rather skinny, maybe he was midway in his physical activities and training. "Yes," the other woman whispered huskily. "He looks like a bad boy, and those eyes suit him perfectly. I would definitely do him." The long dark-haired woman said as she licked her lips, unknowingly causing Issei to sweat and think. "Not another Kiryu, please." It appeared to be that there were women that were also perverts outside of Kuo. The man inside the kitchen never took his eyes off the young man sitting on the stool, his son already took care of his order. He didn't do it because he felt something was weird with the guy in front of him. Grabbing all of his courage, he went closer to him and with a friendly smile and tone he asked. "You don't look from around here. Did you get lost?" The tone was as friendly as he could manage. Issei opened his eyes and looked into his eyes, making the old man discreetly sweat. "What kind of eyes are those?" he screamed internally when he saw those pairs of eyes clearly. They looked like they were synced in darkness, but the light they held was extremely firm and unwavering. They also transmitted a certain wisdom and life that amazed him. "What did you go through?" That look for a kid not even 20 was exceedingly rare. Not even him, who was reaching his 40s and traveled around the world, had that look in his eyes. "Yes, I'm new. I am traveling around the world and Kyoto is my first stop." The dragon answered the question with his sharp and warm voice, although the man looked at him weirdly, it didn't hold any bad emotion, more like surprise and caution. "I see. A traveler." At the mention of this, the old man smiled even further. "I also traveled around the world when I was younger, a great experience. I'm glad there's still someone that wants to do it." Remembering his younger days, he rested his body on the kitchen bar, getting closer to Issei. "You also traveled around the world?" His interest piqued, he asked the old man. "Yes, you see, I am a cook that studied at a rather prestigious academy, but in that place I once forgot what was the most important to me, so I decided to travel around the world and find it again." He explained his story while making sure his son didn't hear him, after all, it was a secret. "And you did?" Issei felt sympathy for the man, he was more or less going through the same situation. "Yes. I did. A woman was the one I found, I married her and had a child. The brat in the kitchen." He pointed to his back where the teen from before was cooking with a smile on his face. "That moment was the best in my life. No trophy. No power. No glory I once gained or will ever gain will surpass the moment when she accepted to marry me." The man had a nostalgic look in his eyes, but they were also filled with happiness. "And what happened to her?" "She passed away due to a sickness a couple of years ago." He said in a calm voice. "I'm sorry for your loss." Issei expressed his apologies, getting a little smirk from the man. "Don't worry, you didn't know about it." Silence filled the place once again until surprisingly Issei broke it. "Which country do you recommend me to visit?" Since the man had experience and he seemed like he wasn't lying, Issei asked. Country? He thought that he would ask inside of Japan. But he suddenly went worldwide. Did he have the money to travel around the globe? Issei just nodded. He placed a hand on his chin. "Which places across the globe have you already visited?" he asked back to him. "Romania." Back during a Clipith attack he visited the land of the vampires. "Maybe I should visit it again, after all, I only went to the castles of the Carmilla and Teeps faction." The man, amazed by the sudden mention of the country, started to think. "Do you like the western part of the world?" He had a couple of places in mind, but he needed to ask the young man. Issei only nodded. "You should probably do it like this." He stopped reclining himself against a kitchen bar and said. "Go to Kuwait, then by land travel all of Arabia, probably go to Jerusalem. Cross Iran, Iraq and Pakistan and then reach India. Once there, take a plane and fly to Germany and visit the countries around it. That's my recommendation," he told Issei. "Sounds good." Issei was convinced, maybe he should do it that way. "Sorry for the wait. Here is your order." The team came back with the plate and put it in front of Issei. "Smells quite good." Issei didn't doubt for a second and went for the meal. In his words, it was delicious and it came from him having eaten high-class food quite normally. "Good food." He said to the boy, only getting a slight smirk on his face. Happy to serve, the teen smirked while removing his white headband, and after a couple of minutes, the meal was gone. So would you be the judge, he asked with stars in his eyes. Sure. If he could eat more delicious food without any extra cost, that was fine by him. Great. Oji, prepare to lose. The red-haired teen had a proud smirk that only lasted that long. 15 minutes later, the same red-haired brat was on his knees in front of his father, crying and laughing bitterly. He was destroyed during the cooking match. Hahaha. That should be around your 500th loss, he laughed at his son, happy about the result. What are you saying? That's only the 489th time he talked back to his father. That doesn't make it any better, Issei thought, while he finished the rice bowl. Thanks for the food. He stood up from the stool, paid for his single plate, and turned around. Old man, thanks for the advice, I might do it that way. He, without turning back, said to the 40-year-old man. And you kid, don't give up. Issei said while he looked over his shoulder. You have much more potential than you can imagine, and soon enough you'll be better than your father. Always remember that. His piercing eyes looking directly at the young man. That look in the mysterious man's face won't be something he will forget. Seeing the face of the young boy, Issei turned his head around and went for the door. What's your name? The teen screamed at him. He wanted to remember the man with those piercing eyes which told him he would be better than his father. I stopped opening the door midway, debating over what to do, but soon he gave up. For you to actually make me say my name pretty good, he held a smirk. Kyoto Issei. Don't forget it. One day I'll come back, and you better stand above from the place you're today. Don't make my words go to waste. He slammed the door open and left, but before that he heard a voice. My name is Yukihira-sama. Better be back, you scoffed in amusement and leave. A couple of moments flew by, the clients inside were silent during the exchange of words between them. Kyoto Issei. Both father and son carved the name into memory, the strange man that irradiated danger and mystery. This was probably the most abnormal person they'll ever meet. Remember Soma, people like that exist all over the world. Some are more special than others, but like him, there are people that will make you want to try your best. The father recommended it to his son and continued cooking. All over the world, huh? I bet we'll meet again, Issei, and at that moment I'll be better than what I am now, he made the promise to himself. Not knowing that soon he would go on a journey that will forever change him. Scene change outside shopping district. Quite the interesting guy. Issei continued his journey, he saw that according to the clock on a wall it was around 1 in the afternoon. I want to go to Fushimi Inari. Before, I wasn't able to tour around it, but I think I'm far away, maybe I should use my Hellgate, he thought to himself as he went to look for a dark alley to use it. Soon he reached one and activated his Hellgate. He went into the black portal and soon disappeared from the place he was at. The portal manifested itself in a different place, Issei calmly walked out of it. After seconds, he saw the temple he visited once before. Fushimi Inari, he had a firm expression on his face. Thankfully, my Hellgate is extremely useful for these types of situations. He appeared in the middle of a busy street, but thanks to the trait of his ability he wasn't noticed by anyone. Really quite a beautiful place. He approached a big red Japanese gate, Ritori, that was at the entrance of the mountain. Behind it, a big ancient Japanese-styled building was present, also red in color. It had the appearance of an even bigger gate which had many golden accents on its surface, giving off a refined look. It had an inclined roof that was light brown in color and also looked extremely beautiful. This was the main gate of Fushimi Inari, and above it, one could see a huge collection of staircases and orange-red torii. Issei walked across the main gate and looked around, seeing 2 bronze statues at the side of the entrance near the main building. They were of 2 foxes, one held a key in its mouth while the other a jewel. Interesting, Issei thought to himself as he went to search for the best route upwards. A sea of people followed him, but it looked like they were coincidentally headed in the same direction. A huge stone staircase could be seen a couple of steps away, massive amounts of tories adorning it, making the staircase have some kind of a roof because of them. A few of the torii were small enough for a man not over 1.80 centimeters to walk through, while others went as high as the trees nearby. The Red Dragon Emperor continued his walk, not paying attention to anyone, fully concentrated in the scenery of the place. Issei continued as he saw how the road was divided into 2. Left. He muttered and walked that way. Some of the tourists behind him chose right, maybe because he looked rather threatening. Only a couple of women were still following him, some even had their phones in their hands. A woman screamed with a blush on her cheeks, it appeared that she took a picture of him. Give me a break. Ice gained a drop of sweat in the back of his neck. After that little problem he decided to increase his pace, and using his absurd speed he left the woman behind. Where did he go? Some asked that to themselves as they looked around. Ice reached the top of the mountain. A big orange-red torii was behind him, this bearing a similitude to the one at the entrance. What of you? The last time I came here we didn't manage to reach this high up. The view here was magnificent, so he went towards a rock and sat on it. Many buildings tall and small could be seen, and hundreds of trees accompanying the streets were present. Because it was a good time of the year, some sakura trees still had their flowers. Issei just sat there not having a single thought inside his head, but soon something caught his interest. He turned around and saw two male figures dressed in apparently civilian clothing. One seemed to be in his early 30s with a blue dress shirt and black pants with the same color of shoes. He as well had golden eyes and hair that seemed out of the ordinary. The second man looked younger by a couple of years, around his mid-20s. He also had the same golden hair, but had blue eyes. He wore military pants green in color and a beige-colored t-shirt. Black boots were on both of his legs. A little out of the ordinary tourists, but not that strange, at least for the majority of the normal people. Issei quickly noticed the true nature of their aura, but he couldn't figure out their species. Since we are in Fushimi Inari, my guess is a kitsune. Not wanting to get into problems, he quickly vanished from his sitting position. His speed so high it reached the realm of leaving after images. He then reappeared at the top of the torii, his eyes never leaving the both of them. He forced his ears a little to try to hear what they were talking about. Man, such a bummer, we can't go to the party hosted by Amaterasu-sama. The gold-eyed Inkai talked to his partner. You know why? We are far too low-leveled for a party in which even gods may attend. The military-wearing man rebutted the comment of the 30-year-old. The party in which gods may appear. Ice listened to their conversation, intrigued by their words. Wanting to know more, he used his senses and scanned both of them without them noticing. Mid-tier, mid-class Imkai is more or less the level of the reserves of the older one. The other Ice took his eyes from the older one and looked at the youngest. Low-tier, high-class Imkai. It seems the younger generation is taking the lead. Yes, but still. I would have loved to see a couple of goddesses in the flesh, the older man commented with a perverted grin on his face. Is that the only reason you wish to go for both? Issei and the strict man thought the same thing. The stick man let out a sigh filled with tiredness. Why, his partner, although older, was more like a child. Boy. Come on, don't be like that. He tried to console the younger one. We found a treasure that was lost a couple of centuries ago. You should be happier. I know, but still letting his feelings out, he sighed. Soon, the younger man thought of another thing that had him rather confused. I don't know how they actually got the treasure. They told us they found it when they were doing damage repair back at Nasuno, but I believe something is off. The older man was surprised. They didn't tell you. Thanks to being of a higher rank, thanks to his age, he got the true information behind the mystery of the treasure. You know. SHHH. Lower your voice. He quickly covered his mouth and started to look around, not looking up where Ice was. Yes, I do. After all, I have a higher position than you even if you're stronger than me. What are you waiting for? Spill it out. The strict younger man left his personality aside and with stars in his eyes, he asked the man. Where did your strictness go from a moment ago? Issei made a mental note. Fine, I'll tell you, but it needs to be in a private location. He seriously commented, getting a nod from his partner. The two of them started to walk around. Their destination was the part of the mountain that wasn't open to the public. They went behind the gate they were currently at and soon crossed the line that separated the mountain in half. Issei was interested. A treasure, the truth behind it, smells like an adventure. Something he rather liked. He decided to follow them. A pair of sharp, pitch black wings made their appearance behind his back. They appeared to be detached from his back, magically floating behind him. He flapped them once, and a second later, he vanished. He was flying extremely fast, to the point that an airwall formed in his surroundings. Do not break a sound barrier. If he did break it, then they will notice something was amiss. After another flap of his wings, he once again saw the two Imkai from before, this time deep inside the small forest of the mountain. The older man released his true form, a fluffy tail, and a pair of sharp pointy ears became visible at the top of his head. Ice, seeing this, knew his guess was right. So he was indeed a kitsune. Still in the air, he used his darkness to cover his left shoulder and right thigh, hiding his presence to the point that the old man couldn't detect it. We're alone, no one noticed us. Issei smiled when the Imkai mentioned this. Now, the reason for how we found a treasure. Both Ice and the younger man paid attention to this. Ice casually landed on a thick tree branch near them to hear better. He did not want to miss this. It wasn't found on a ruin during the repair, it was found on someone. The older man explained, getting an amazed look from the military dude and a nod of acceptance from Ice. He suspected that. After the destruction caused by the beast, we did go to do repair jobs, but what we didn't expect was for a strong Imkai to be the province of Nasuno. That Imkai had the treasure. Who was the Imkai? The strict guy asked his partner for another nod from Ice. He also wanted to know about that. You won't believe it. Just say it, old man Ice was getting tired of beating around the bush. Just say it seems he wasn't the only one. Fine. Fine. Yeesh, don't get your panties in a twist, said with sarcasm. It was found on a female kitsune imkai. His answer managed to get a deadpan look from his partner. And he asked back. It was a 9-tailed fox. That was the information both Ice and the 20-year-old wanted to hear. The first to react was the 20-year-old. Wait. A 9-tailed fox. If I'm not wrong, the only 9-tailed fox is Yusaka-sama, muttered under his breath. Unless. The young man widened his eyes at the realization. He soon took some steps back in shock and fell down to the ground. Ha! Indeed, the older one smiled at the scene. The 9-tailed fox that had red hair with a tinge of black, also known as a Kyuubi no Imko. Descendant of one of the 3 most evil Imkai. A descendant of Tamamo no Mei. Issei was shocked. A descendant of Tamamo no Mei, weren't they exterminated? Issei remembered reading about it. Weren't they eradicated a couple of hundreds of years ago? It seems the younger man thought the same. They were supposed to. He nodded his head. But it seems a survivor escaped and continued the legacy. When we found her, she proved to be extremely strong. I was present when we had to take her down. It took an entire squadron of ultimate class Imkai just to subdue her. The man shuddered as he remembered that day. What happened to her? The man was scared. An entire squadron just to subdue her and not kill her. Obviously they wanted something else from her. She was jailed here in Kyoto. Issei was happy about the info. Maybe I can offer her to join my team if I free her. He did his machinations. I don't know the exact location because they refused to give it out. After all, it would be quite dangerous if it's known. His tone deadly serious. The only thing I know is that she's inside Arashiyama. The bamboo forest. Why there? Beats me, I just casually heard it as my 2 superiors were talking. Arashiyama, Issei was lost in thought. That place was quite big. It would take time to explore it all, and finding someone was even harder. Then what about the treasure? That question also piqued Ice's interest. I also don't know. They didn't tell me at all. The man was quite angry at the secrecy of his superiors. The treasure's so important that they won't tell about it. Issei was kind of excited about it. Now he knew his next destiny for travel. Arashiyama, here I come. He was about to leave when he heard another question, so he stopped midway. Then what about Yusaka-sama and Amaterasu-sama? Do they know about how they got the treasure? The man asked. He knew that if both of them knew about the descendant, then she wouldn't be jailed. Of course not, he scoffed. Both of them are far too naive and will let her roam freely. They are even capable of offering her a high position. After all, she's quite strong and an extremely rare species of Imkai. So the superiors made the story of casually finding it. But a traitor should be executed. The young man raised his voice, getting a smirk from the old one. It appears that she's despised by the Imkai, even if she's just a descendant. Ice was disgusted by the look in both Imkai's eyes. Tch. Trash, Issei muttered under his breath, debating whether to kill them or not. He soon changed his mind. During this time period, if anything were to happen, it will alert everyone and his newly formed plan will go down the drain. He turned around and jumped high into the air, not letting them sense him at all. When he reached a sufficient height, he used his darkness and formed his former pair of wings. He flapped them and vanished from the spot. Freely flying in the sky, Ice was focused on his thoughts. Where should I go? Arashiyama was huge, so he didn't know where to land. Fuck it. Let luck be my guide. He increased his speed, breaking the sound barrier. Time skip 4 hours later. How big is this fucking place? Issei screamed. He spent more than 4 hours in the shitty bamboo forest, but aside from a few boars and squirrels, nothing else was seen. Not even a human being. You gotta be kidding me. How am I supposed to find someone in this huge fucking place? Cursing at the highest capacity of his lungs, he sat on a nearby rock. He then laid down on it and watched the sky change from a clear blue to a deeper one, clouds covering the majority of it. A few of the nearby bamboo trees covered the extremes of his vision. A couple of cherry blossoms and Japanese maples could be seen here and there. Some of their leaves fall to the ground because of the winds, making the gray and brown floor look livelier with their pinks and reds. When will I find something? Issei was still on the rock, lamenting that he couldn't find anything. He heard a noise behind him and stood up. He prepared his left arm to summon rebellion just in case of anything. He looked at the origin of the sound and saw a couple of bamboo trees moving from one side to another. I'm prepared for anything, he said to the thing behind the trees. But he was disappointed. A small monkey not taller than his knee came from the top of the bamboo tree. Ice only blinked in confusion and sensed the monkey. Finding nothing wrong with it, he released his guard. Sounded exhausted. A monkey of all things made me lose my cool. His hand that was prepared to summon rebellion at any time relaxed. The monkey was looking directly at him, not breaking eye contact. Weird Monkey looked back at the monkey. The moment after that, the monkey made noises and pointed its little hand towards Issei and back to himself continuously. "What are you doing, Issei?" confused, asked the monkey, whose only response was to move his hand in that odd fashion even more. "Do you want me to follow you?" The monkey nodded and screamed even more. He jumped in his place to signify that he was excited. Follow a normal-looking monkey into the depths of a forest, what could go wrong? Well, nothing better to do. He just shrugged his shoulders and walked towards the monkey, who looked even more excited. He continued to follow the monkey that was walking in a funny way. After a couple of minutes, maybe around half an hour, the monkey stopped and turned around, jumping and squealing like crazy. "So we're here." He, some way or another, figured out what the monkey wanted to say. The monkey jumped into a nearby tree and climbed it. The vision without the monkey was that of a huge plain with many mossy rocks in different sizes. From a small pebble to an actual hill, many other monkeys were climbing the surrounding bamboo trees or playing with the stones and other monkeys. "This is your home, Ice?" asked the monkey that was climbing a nearby tree. The monkey only started to squeal in return. "Quite a beautiful place you got here." He complimented. "I wonder if Mount Uigua will be anything like this." He looked around and saw the many monkeys playing, sleeping or just staring at him. "It seems they don't think of me as a threat. Quite weird." He didn't understand why the monkeys looked at him with no fear in their eyes. He also couldn't understand why they were so smart. At least, the one that brought him here was incredibly smart for a normal monkey. The one that brought him here climbed down the tree and stood in front of him. They held a staring contest in which, after a few moments, the monkey broke it and squealed. It appeared that he was accepted here. "So does that mean you accept me as a visitor?" he asked the monkey, who only tilted his head. "I guess I asked for too much." "Ooh-ah." The monkey then nodded his head. "He understood me." He was stunned at the nod of the monkey. "I can't believe I'm going to do this." Remembering why he was here in the first place, he muttered to himself. "Well, I literally have nothing to lose." He steadied himself and looked directly into the monkey's eyes. "I'm looking for someone. She's a fox with red and black tails. Have you seen her?" It appeared that he finally lost the sanity he had left. Here goes nothing. Guessing his darkness, he manifested what he hoped was a foxtail and a pair of ears to make the monkey understand. Then he pointed at the red parts of his darkness and said, "Seen someone like that?" The monkey finally understood and nodded with a dumb grin on his face. "You have?" He was shocked. The monkey nodded his head again. "Would you take me to her?" he asked the most important question. The monkey, for the fourth time, nodded its little head. Then the monkey began to squeal and two other monkeys came to his side. They looked just like him, black in color, but one looked a lot older. He squealed at Issei and did the sign in which he pointed to himself and then at Ice. "I'll follow you." Issei activated his darkness and turned it into stains covering his left shoulder and thigh. "Lead the way." Issei smirked. The monkey squealed and the other two jumped up and down and into the trees. It seems his only guide here was a clever monkey. The monkey came closer to him and pointed at Issei's shoulder. Knowing what the monkey meant, he let him stand on his shoulder. Where to? The black monkey pointed in a direction. Ice followed the finger. A couple of minutes went by. Ice could only hear the trees moving, maybe because of the other two that accompanied them. The monkey every now and then pointed in another direction, which just followed in silence. After another hour the sky was starting to darken. Perhaps he had another hour or two before light. The monkey on his shoulder squealed and then jumped off of his shoulder. Landing on the ground, he turned to look at him and just pointed in a direction. In the distance, Issei could see a small mountain. "That's the place?" he asked the monkey, which in turn only nodded. Then he walked closer towards it. Seeing that the monkey was not coming with him, he tilted his head. "Not coming?" The black monkey only nodded its little head and waved his hand, maybe as a sign of goodbye. Issei saw this and smiled. He then waved back at the monkey, which turned its back to him and left while climbing a tree. "Thank you, you were a great help." Turning around, Issei looked at the new destination, a mountain in the distance. Walking a couple of meters, he sensed something. He could sense the presence of them. Walking even closer, he reached the end of the forest, only seeing a humongous mountain which covered a great part of the sky. 2610. All at least low tier high class. He spotted only 10 Imkai outside making guard. "I shouldn't kill them, only knock them out. Less things to cover up." Walking closer to the left side, where fewer guards were patrolling, he prepared his move. An Amanage Aku. It was a small Imkai that made people wicked. In other words, it cursed them. It was small in shape and had the appearance of a small Oni, a meter tall. At an incredible speed he approached the nearest guard. He used his darkness and covered only a small part of his left hand, then he hit the back of his neck, knocking him out. One down. He grabbed the unconscious body and silently let him fall onto the floor. Maybe I should make restraints just in case of anything. He used his darkness again and made a couple of simple looking ropes that tied him down to the ground, even one covering his mouth. But even if he wakes up, he won't be capable of doing anything. He then went towards the second Imkai. This one being a Baku, a spirit which devoured dreams and nightmares. It held no physical body and looked like a normal ghost. Mid-tier high class, covering even more of his hand in his darkness. He went for it. Punching his face as hard as he could, he once again succeeded. So my darkness can even punch spirits and beings that have no physical body. Pretty good. He discovered something new about his darkness. Issei repeated the process on all 8 remaining Imkai. These ones were either normal red or blue Anis or Tengus. He then cuffed them like the first one and discreetly went inside the cave. Damn. This place has many different roads. He noticed how the cave divided itself into 7 different roads, all looking exactly the same. They were all grey with a few stalactites hanging off the ceiling, rocks, and puddles of water on the floor. I'll have to use my senses. He closed his eyes and let his dragon senses kick in. He felt the auras of many Imkais, but one of them appeared to be in a separate location, and it dwarfed everyone else inside this cave. Bingo. He muttered as he felt the enormous reserves of magic of the last Imkai. That's at least top tier ultimate class. Maybe even more. He couldn't hide the smile on his face. Before, maybe I could only fight it in my true queen form, and that's just to match it. He gulped. If he could get that trapped Imkai to agree into becoming part of his team, then he would have an extremely powerful ally. Time to move. The dragon moved inwards, finding a couple of Imkai here and there and of course, knocking them out and binding them. When will I reach the end? He muttered, annoyed at the length and depth of the cave. After those words, I saw the end of the cave. It was a huge grey rock wall with a single metal door at the bottom of it. The door was seemingly made out of lead and other metals, some he could identify as being magical in a way. The black door looked thick and heavy, glimmering with a dull light. A couple of Onmum talismans were attached to the door and even the wall at the sides. That's quite the defense for a single intern. Although he couldn't understand what those spells did, he could see they were extremely strong. Because it's the first problem. He took note of the door at the furthest ends. Then he looked at the ones guarding it. All are top tier high class, bordering ultimate class. The one at the entrance of the door is a mid-tier ultimate class. Issei was a bit amazed by this setup. This many guards just for you, it seems they really do not want you to get out. He looked at his surroundings, finding the 5 Imkai. Well, being sneaky is no longer an option. A fight will definitely break out. I will need to take them out as fast as possible. He made his plan and looked at all the Imkai present, trying to figure out their species and weaknesses. We have an Enkim similar to a turtle twice as hard. He furrowed his brows, annoyed at that. 2 Furibi creatures composed entirely of flames. Well, the other 2 are kitsunes, including the ultimate class. He was glad he learned about them during the past week, thanks to that he could more or less guess their abilities. Man, why are we standing guard here? We could just kill her and end all of this. The amphibian creature made the comment, his voice sounded raspy and old, like a rusty piece of steel. You know why the voice sounded irritated. We have been tasked with the honor of guarding her, and after the party hosted by Amaterasu-sama is finished, they will execute her. One flame spirit rebutted the comment. He looked like a cluster of flames in human form, but without a face. Even his voice sounded like a normal human. I know, but still. We could have gone to the party. The turtle didn't give up and talked back. No one among us would be able to go. The weakest kitsune said calmingly with his arms crossed. Although they say it's open, many strings are pulled behind the curtain to let only important people in. He was a white, single-tailed kitsune. It had the appearance of a human male in his 30s, wearing black training gear and black boots, contrasting with the color of his ears and tail. True. Haha. Everyone looked at the direction in which they sensed something. A man was walking out of the darkness of the cave. Just a look from him made everyone stay on guard. This is bad. The ultimate class got rid of his lax stance and focused on the man in question. The man in front of them seemed to be absurdly dangerous, but by the level of magic reserves he was above the low-tier ultimate class. However, that didn't scare them, rather it was the aura he irradiated. It was dark, endless, and suffocating. Move. The cold voice of the man was heard, making everyone's hair stand on end. Who are you? The ultimate class kitsune had a drop of sweat on his brow. Move. Was Ice's answer. Why, you look extremely young, but you have so much magic reserves. Wono what are why you? The older kitsune asked, trying to hide his nervousness. I see you're scared of my reserves. Issei's eyes glimmered with a cold light. Well, for us dragons our magic reserves are our aura, and we certainly have a lot of advantages compared to all of the other races. He thought as a matter of fact. Density and purity of it makes us hit harder and use it more frequently, and once our aura awakens and takes physical form, the effect is hundreds of times as big. So I don't blame you for being scared. Answer me. The Imkai was getting desperate, in his hand a couple of talismans could be seen, and his body was covered in Tamuki. Physical fighter. Issei deduced. He won't talk, so let's beat the information out of him, the turtle told his team members with a smirk, a blue aura surrounding him. Senjutsu? Ice asked, intrigued by the subtle aura. Indeed, the turtle proudly smirked. Senjutsu is the manipulation of natural energy in our surroundings, and some are even capable of manipulating the life force of living beings. So what? Ice tried to anger the turtle, to get more information out of him. After all, no books on Senjutsu were recorded in the library. The vein popped out of the turtle's face. Shut up. Although it's not comparable to the Senjutsu of the new ambassador, mine is pretty good. I can manipulate all natural water. Spilling the beans, his teammates facepalmed at the comment of the turtle. New ambassador? Issei asked back, that title rang a bell. Yes. Kuroka-sama, the new ambassador. His voice was filled with adulation. Her Senjutsu is so powerful that she's capable of manipulating all natural elements, while some of us can manipulate one or two. She's also the future wife of the war hero, the Sekiryute, Hyodo Issei. Haha. Issei laughed loudly, his voice warm. There's something else completely. Kuroka. I really don't know what to say. Happy at the memory of the black kitten, he laughed in delight. The rest were shocked by the tone in his voice, but didn't let their guards down. Thanks for the laugh, but I still need to accomplish my mission. Issei stopped his laugh and changed into his serious mode. I'll say it one more time. Move. He summoned his darkness and coated both hands, muttering rebellion. The small portal made its appearance in front of his hand, and a short curved blade that looked more like a short sword came out of it. Seeing the Imkai still on guard, Issei thought, you're looking for it. But the speed not perceivable by the naked eyes, Issei sped forward. Like a blur of black light he went for the turtle. But in an instant, the strongest kitsune appeared in front of the turtle, his entire forearm covered by a thick layer of tauki. Boing, he blocked the swing from the blade, but it didn't stop the ground from denting in, nor his arm getting cut by the blade. How strong is this guy? The force of impact made him almost kneel. That guy possessed ridiculous strength. I need to use my talismans. Twisting his hand to parry the attack and letting it slip off his arm, he created a small gap to use his Onman Marts. Create a flood of water. Order from the talisman in his hand, a huge wave of water came forth. Now this is interesting, but I need to end it fast. Sorry. Issei held back an arrogant smirk. Issei coated his blade in his hellblaze, compressing them to fit the entire length of the blade. Amichijiri, his voice was like that of an executioner. Issei made a downward slash, and while swinging his blade, a huge mass of purple-black flames came from it in the shape of a curved slash. FSSSSS. The moment they touched the torrent of water coming for him, the flames completely evaporated. The fire continued its path, not hindered by anything. The attack landed on every single Imkai behind the ultimate class, knocking them out, to put it pretty. This was a move he practiced since he discovered his hellblaze, and the more he compressed the flames around the edge of the blade, the stronger the power he would get. Although I held back, it still caused a lot of damage. He said nonchalantly while resting the blade on his shoulder. Among the Imkai, only the ultimate class was still standing, covered in burns, and barely breathing, but still standing. It seemed that he took most of the attack on purpose and reduced the damage for his partners. However, the rest were still wounded and unconscious on the floor. Impressive. You actually survived. He complimented the Imkai. Monster, the kitsune muttered while falling to his knees. Monster, he sounded amused. Sorry, but that at most would be capable of wounding a mid-tier ultimate class, at least at that level. The thing is, you're too weak for being an ultimate class, he answered without a shred of mercy. The Imkai just fainted after hearing the words. Well, time to go for the door. The dragon walked past the unconscious Imkase and reached the thick door covered in talismans. Quite the spells. He praised with a bored look on his eyes. Now, how am I going to destroy these, he mumbled as he touched a slightly burned talisman. Oh? Perhaps that could work. Issei placed himself into an Iedo stance with his blade on his hip. He coated a short sword in his darkness, but without making his flames appear. My darkness is capable of vaporizing anything it touches. If I compressed it and use it on my blade, then. He swung his sword across the talisman while holding his darkness on the edge of it. It was after a moment that the talisman separated into two in a diagonally way. Success, he raised his hand up in glee. Now I only have to do it a couple more times. After repeating the process, the door was left alone, not a single talisman on it, but a problem was still there. They locked and reinforced the metal of it. He clicked his tongue annoyed. I don't think they would have left the key with any of them. If they had, a lot more Imkase would be stationed here. Issei then looked at the lock of the door, glistening with a dull gray light. Looks thick and tough, but I don't care. He summoned his help blaze and surrounded his left hand with it until it covered his entire wrist. The echo of metal getting struck spread throughout the cave. Issei punched the lock with all of his might, successfully denting a big part of it. Following this, the flames surrounding his arm heated the metal to the point it glowed red, effectively melting it little by little. Drake pushed his hand inwards, liquefying the entire lock, and soon, the door opened. Easier than I thought. He extinguished the flames on his arm and looked around the room. Not a single jail cell was seen. Instead, a woman was shackled against the wall, lifted around 6 or 7 meters into the air. Her limbs were perfectly bound by chains, while the shackled surface was entirely covered in talismans that were colored in a yellow light. Talismans reinforced with overlapping senjutsu spells. Issei knitted his brows, amazed by the security inside. He went closer and saw that in the wall behind her even more talismans were present, adding another layer of security. All of them were arranged in the shape of a pentagram, each point of it perfectly aligned with her limbs and with her chest oriented towards the center of it. Are they really that desperate to keep her here? She was the only one inside the entire jail. This seemed ridiculous. Unfortunately, because there was no light, apart from the onmum spells inside this place, he couldn't really distinguish her appearance, only her silhouette. Who are you? Her voice is raspy, desperately in need of water. I'm the one that came to save you. He answered her question. Why? She asked again, her red eyes could be seen in between the bangs of her hair that covered the entirety of her face. Because of 2 things. He lifted 2 fingers. First. He put down his index finger. Because I want you to be part of my team. And second, because I hate how they talked about you. Issei's eyes glowed dangerously. Issei was extremely angry. He never thought that just because of being the descendant of someone would they be treated so badly, chased throughout Japan as if a criminal. The woman, on the other hand, was surprised by the tone of his voice. It was extremely odd, but more than that she could sense the feeling of anger he had at the mention of her treatment. That piqued her interest. Why are you angry? Is it like you're being affected? She looked into those black and red eyes of his, slightly alarmed by them. Issei, in exchange, saw those empty eyes of hers and was momentarily stumped. He knew those types of eyes. How many times had he stared at those eyes in the mirror? How many times has he seen that empty look? That glare that showed that he gave up on everything. Too many for his taste. He stayed silent, trying to ignore the bad memories that he had. But he refused to. He needed to be better, to face his past head-on and let it rest at last. He promised to himself that for that to happen, he needed to help this woman. Forget everything else. If he couldn't help someone that had that look in their eyes, that expression on their face, then what was the point of getting out of that cave? Issei took a deep breath and steadied himself. His eyes filled with determination. He will help this woman. One way or another. It's simple. He explained. Children do not carry the sins of the parents. He stated while looking at her eyes. You're innocent, and just because of being a descendant of Tamamo no Mae they treat you like a criminal. Like you're evil. What kind of bullshit is that? The woman hid her extreme surprise by closing her eyes. Not once has someone called her innocent. Not once has someone been angry because of her. All of this was new. They treat you like a plague, like some kind of bad omen. They leave you. Chase after you. Scorn and insult you just because you're related to someone. His voice filled with barely concealed fury. That's the stupidest thing I've ever heard. Is being related to someone bad? Is it your fault that she did what she had to do? And even if what she did was wrong, have you ever thought why she did it? His words echoed inside her mind. Old books, stories, and information state that she did it because she was pure evil. Because she was a malicious spirit that wished for everything to end. But, is it true? This man's words made her widen her eyes. She never expected for someone to think like that. His words definitely struck a really deep place inside her heart, of that she was sure. If so, then what about the people that do evil things? He quoted his words. What about a mother that leaves her husband and takes her children with her? Is that wrong? Isn't leaving a kid without a father bad? Then why is it considered good when she does it and terrible when the man actually takes the kids? Why do people not look into it if it's the mother case? Why do they assume it's automatically good if she did it? I'll tell you why. Plain hypocrisy. He scoffed while crossing his arms. What about the killing of a dictator? A terrorist? A rapist? A serial killer? Killing is indeed wrong, but sometimes things need to be done, and a little talk won't cut it. More drastic measures are needed, and even if it's wrong, if it's evil, it has to be done. Issei walked from one side of the jail cell to the other, constantly talking and moving around. Thanks for watching this video. Part 8 is over. If you really enjoy this video, like, subscribe, and comment down below, and turn on that bell notification. And also check out the playlist that I have created and enjoy. Link is in the description. See you in the next video. Goodbye.